Welcome, economics students, to Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is going to introduce us to some of the most important basic economic principles and concepts, which will serve as the foundation for the remainder of our course. So this is a relatively important chapter. Most of these concepts and principles will be used throughout the class. I know this is an online class, but I'm going to use the same introductory exercise I would use as if we were in class. So if you would, for a moment, look at these 5 questions and try to think about the world as an economist. So look at the title of the exercise, Do You Think Like an Economist? The purpose of this exercise is to help you understand that economists see the world differently than average everyday people. So we're not asking, do you think like a chemist? Do you think like a biologist? Do you think like an accountant? Do you think like a doctor? Do you think like an economist? So there are 5 statements on the board here. What you want to do is evaluate each statement and decide for yourself if you think the statement is true or false. And not just if it's true or false, but why it would be considered true or false. So you may want to pause the video for a moment, write down your answers and your reasoning to these 5 questions, and then pick it up after you hit pause. So I assume that you have taken a few moments to evaluate these 5 statements and to think about them and to think about the title of our exercise, Do You Think Like an Economist? Now let's go over the results. The first statement and the second statement both deal with an important economic principle, the principle of scarcity. As you can see, the word scarce is in both statements. The first statement says, because it is desirable, sunshine is scarce. Well, to an economist, the term scarcity has a very specific meaning or connotation or definition. In order for any good or resource, any item to be considered scarce on Earth to an economist, it has to be both desirable and limited. In the case of sunshine, it is quite desirable. People like to go to the beach and absorb some sun rays. Obviously, sunshine is good for photosynthesis. Without it, there would be no oxygenating plants and there would be no life on Earth. Likewise, we can generate power based on converting the sun's energy into electricity. All of these things make sunshine quite desirable. But in terms of an economic product or good or service, sunshine is what we call a free good. It cannot be limited and no one has possession, control, or ownership over the sun. Therefore, to an economist, it is not scarce because it does not fit the description of being both desirable and limited. Yes, it's desirable, but no, it's not limited. In case of number 2, statement number 2, because it is limited, polio is scarce. If you ask the average everyday person living in the United States of America, is polio scarce? They would inevitably say yes, because very few people are stricken with polio these days. That's thanks in large to a vaccination that was developed by Professor Salk. And because of Salk vaccination, most people are now spared the agony of this god-awful disease. So, in terms of economics, polio is not desirable. Therefore, it is not scarce. Notice, the economist sees the world differently than the average everyday person. Number 3 and number 4 introduce an important economic term that we will be using throughout the semester. Opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is the next best alternative that one must give up, forego, when they make any decision. So for instance, while you are watching this video, you cannot simultaneously be reading a book. If you are at work for 6 hours, you cannot simultaneously be at the park going for a walk and enjoying a picnic lunch. So, opportunity cost, the next best alternative. One important caveat regarding the idea of opportunity cost that economists like to drive home is that there is always a cost involved. In other words, No matter what decision you make, there will always be some cost involved. Let's see how this concept plays out with these two statements, number 3 and number 4. The main cost of having children is this money you spend on them for food, shelter, education, and other things. Yes, it is expensive to have children. But if you think about people who bring children into this world, the main cost of having children is not the food, shelter, and education and other things you have to pay for. When you have a child, your life is basically over as you know it. Joking around a little bit there, but the main cost is the time. Children are a 24-hour job, 7 days a week until they reach 18, maybe even older than that if they move back home after college. So the main cost of having children goes far beyond the food, shelter, and clothing you have to pay for them. The main cost of having children is the fact that you now have a human being that you are responsible to take care of all day, every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Now, interesting fact. If there is always a cost involved, and if there's a cost to having children, then by default, the economists would say, there is a cost to not having children. So what is the cost of not having children? Well, people that have children, whether they are your own biological children or adopted children, end up having this amazing bond that's indescribable. It's a unique experience. It's something that if you don't have your own kids, you probably will never be able to quite feel at the same level. So if you're a parent, you get to listen to your children say their first words and walk around for the first time, go to school for the first day, and you take them to their Cub Scout meeting, and you take them to their ballet recital, and you watch them graduate from kindergarten and grade school and high school, and you get to watch them go to the prom. All of these experiences have value. It's difficult to put a price tag on them, but as a parent, it's a unique, amazing experience that if you do not have children, you do not get to experience. Number 3, the main cost of going to college is tuition, room, and board. No doubt, it is expensive to go to college. But let's use a little example to talk about opportunity costs and going to college. On this slide, we have two people, Tom and John. Tom and John both graduated from Norristown High School, and they both graduated high school in 1994, so that 1 year after their high school will be 1995. Tom has decided to go work for UPS and load boxes on trucks. John has decided to go to a full-time college program. We could say St. Joseph's University, LaSalle University, some local university. Let's talk about Tom's situation first. Tom has decided that he's going to go to work. He's going to earn $25,000 per year. So, the question is for Tom, what is the cost of not going to college? Well, most of you will readily identify that if you don't go to college, if you don't receive a 4-year degree, your lifetime earnings will probably be less. And we have a question mark there for 2008, down the road, 10 years out after college graduation time. But let's just talk about the immediate opportunity cost of not going to college. If Tom stays at home and goes to work for UPS, what's the opportunity cost of this, of giving up that next best alternative of going to college? Well, things such as he doesn't get that college experience. He doesn't get to go live independently for his very first own time and meet new people, guys and girls, and build really cool relationships. He doesn't get to experience the learning process. I know most people go to college because they want a good job, but in essence, education should have its own value. So all of those classes that you take as a college student provide some type of educational experience and help you grow as an individual, as a person, give you more perspective on life. When you're away at college, you have to learn to do things for yourself. You have to figure out, when do I get up and go to class? How much time do I dedicate to studying? How much time should I party? What happens if I get sick and I have to take care of myself? All of these have educational value. So all of the unique experiences associated with the college experience are something that Tom is going to forego if he decides to go right to the workforce. Many times people meet their significant other while they're in college. So these type of experiences, again, don't have a number price tag on them, but there's definitely an opportunity cost to not going to college. What about John? If there's an opportunity cost of not going to college, there must be an opportunity cost of going to college. Take a moment and ask yourself, how much does it cost John to go to college? Okay, I've given you a moment to think about it. You can hit pause if you don't want to hear the answer. But according to an economist, the opportunity cost for John to attend college is not $100,000. Why? Because you have to consider not only the $25,000 put out each year for tuition, room, and board. That would add up to $125,000 for each year of 95, 96, 97, 98. You also have to consider the potential lost wages. While John is having the educational experience of college, Tom is earning money. So not only is John spending $25,000 for tuition, room, and board, he is foregoing $100,000 worth of income over that same 4 years. Therefore, the cost of going to college is $200,000. Besides the lost income and tuition, room, and board, what are the other opportunity costs involved with John decided to going right to college? Well, Tom, he gets 4 years of work experience. He has some type of practical resume experience that he can put on his resume and has value that says, hey, look, I got up and went to work every day. I know what it's like to be responsible. I know what it's like to deal with bosses and coworkers. That's something John has not yet experienced. Now, why did I pick these specific years, 95 to 98? During that time, there was a stock market boom. Let's say Tom started working for UPS and got some good advice from, say, an aunt or an uncle about putting money away in his 401k, his qualified retirement fund. These 4 years were the best 4 years at the stock market boom. Now, it all went bust in 1999, but in addition to the salary that Tom was receiving, he could have saved a significant amount of money in his 401k over that period of time. These are things that you have to consider. Economists like to consider all of the variables or scenarios when they discuss opportunity cost. Now, of course, if we fast forward down the road to 2008, the reason why John went to college, not only for those experiences, not only to meet friends, not only to become a more rounded individual from the education itself, but if you look at the lifetime earnings, on average, someone with a college degree earns double that of someone with a high school diploma. So in 2008, or I should say by 2008, John is making about $78,000 a year, while Tom's salary has only advanced by a meager amount. Let's use one more example. Let's add one more person into our opportunity cost discussion or equation. We know the opportunity cost of Tom for deciding to go right to UPS and work right out of high school. We discussed John and his opportunity cost of going to a 4-year program directly into college and not working. What about Tiger? Let's assume that Tiger is at one of those illustrious universities out west somewhere, I don't know, we'll say Stanford University. Let's also assume that Tiger is pretty good at sports and he's on a scholarship for athletics. We'll say, I don't know, golf. So Tiger is at Stanford University on a golf scholarship. He's not paying for tuition, room, or board, or even books. And he does pretty well his freshman year and his sophomore year. He gets good grades, all A's and B's. And he's considering leaving college after 2 years. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? Well, typically it's not a good idea for people to leave college early because, as we already determined, people with a college degree end up making, on average, twice as amount of a yearly salary as somebody with simply a high school diploma. But for Tiger Woods, the opportunity cost of staying in college this more year ends up being around $60 million. Now, he didn't make all this money playing golf. He made the vast majority of it in endorsements. But by turning pro, he made himself eligible to receive endorsements. So the point here from an economist standpoint is people in seemingly similar situations have much different opportunity costs connected with their decisions. Normally, it is a wise idea to stay in college. But Bill Gates, now the richest man on earth, he was at Harvard University. He would have graduated with a degree from one of the most illustrious institutions on earth, but decided to leave early to start Microsoft. So, opportunity cost not only involves your age and your previous decisions, it also depends on your certain scenario and the specifics of your situation.